Salvatore Romano had not used sign language in 7 years, not since his sister Lucia died. But when the woman burst into his restaurant at midnight, barefoot and bleeding, her face swollen from fists that had beaten her while screaming, "Say something you cannot, can you?" His hands moved before his brain caught up. "Who hurt you?" he whispered, and signed simultaneously. She could not speak, her hands trembling as they formed desperate signs. But Sal would answer for her. With violence, with permanence, with the kind of justice men like her boyfriend never saw coming. Where are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. And if you want exclusive access to bonus content and early releases, click that join button to become a member. The night had been quiet until she arrived. Sal's restaurant, a legitimate front for less legitimate business, had closed 2 hours ago. He sat in his office reviewing shipment manifests when he heard the crash of his front door slamming open, followed by running footsteps. His hand went to the gun at his hip automatically, but he did not draw. Not yet. His guards would handle whatever drunk fool had stumbled into the wrong place. Then he heard Carlo's voice, urgent and confused. "Boss, you need to see this." Sal emerged from his office to find a woman collapsed against his bar, blood streaming from her nose and split lip. Her left eye was swelling shut, already turning purple. She wore no shoes, her clothes were torn, and her long blonde hair was tangled and matted with blood. But what caught his attention were her hands, moving in desperate, fluid motions that he recognized instantly, even after 7 years of not seeing them. American Sign Language. "Please help me, please," her hands said with frantic urgency. Muscle memory overrode conscious thought. Sal's hands formed the question before his brain fully processed what he was doing. "Who hurt you?" He signed, while his voice whispered the same words. The woman's hazel eyes, wide with terror and pain, suddenly filled with hope so intense it was almost painful to witness. "He knows sign language," her expression said. Relief flooded her battered face, even as tears streamed down her cheeks. Her hands moved again, trembling but determined. "Boyfriend." "He hit me. Thought I looked at another man." "He's crazy. Please, I ran. He's coming." As if summoned by her fear, the front door crashed open again. A man stumbled in, drunk and furious, his face twisted with rage. He was maybe 5'10", muscular, but going soft around the middle, wearing dirty construction clothes and reeking of cheap beer. "Aria!" he bellowed. "Get your ass back home right now!" Sal stepped between the man and the woman, Aria, and something in his expression made the drunk pause mid-stride. "She's not going anywhere with you." "Who the fuck are you?" The man's words slurred together. "She's my girlfriend. Can't even talk, the mute bitch. Can't tell you any different, can she?" He laughed, a cruel sound that made Sal's jaw tighten. "What's she gonna do? Sign for help?" Oh wait, she already tried that. Pathetic. That laugh, that mocking tone, the casual cruelty of using her disability as a weapon. Sal's decision crystallized in that instant, cold and absolute. This man was going to die. Soon. Painfully. But first. "Carlo, Vincent, escort this gentleman outside. Make sure he understands he's not welcome in my establishment." Tyler, if that was his name, tried to lunge forward. "She's mine. You can't—" Sal's guards grabbed him, and despite Tyler's struggles, they were professionals. They had him out the door in seconds. Sal could hear Tyler's screaming threats fade as they dragged him down the block. He turned back to Aria, who had sagged against the bar, her adrenaline clearly crashing. Up close, the damage was worse. Her face was a mess of bruises and blood. Her shirt was torn at the collar. Defensive wounds marked her arms where she'd tried to protect herself. Sal's hands moved automatically. "You're safe now. He won't hurt you again." Her hand shook as she signed back. "How do you know sign language?" "My sister." She was deaf and mute like you. I learned when I was young. She died 7 years ago. The words came easier in sign than they would have in speech. Grief lived in his hands, in the muscle memory Lucia had taught him. Arya's expression softened even through her pain. I'm sorry. Sal gestured to one of the chairs. Sit. Let me get supplies to clean those wounds. Then you can tell me what happened. He kept a well-stocked first aid kit in his office, a necessity in his line of work. When he returned, Arya was sitting where he'd left her, her hands folded in her lap, blonde hair falling forward to hide her damaged face. She looked small and broken, and something in Sal's chest tightened with protective fury. He pulled a chair close and began cleaning the blood from her face with careful, gentle movements. She flinched at first, a full-body recoil that spoke of conditioning, of learned fear. Sal immediately pulled back, his hands moving into her line of sight. I won't hurt you. I promise. Every movement will be slow. You can see everything I'm doing. If you want me to stop, just sign, and I'll stop immediately. Arya's hazel eyes studied him for a long moment, searching for deception, for hidden violence. Whatever she found in his face must have reassured her because she nodded slowly and tilted her face up, granting permission. Sal worked with infinite patience, cleaning blood from her nose, her lip, the cut on her cheekbone. The bruises were already darkening, purple and yellow, spreading across her delicate features. Her left eye was swollen nearly shut. Defensive wounds marked her forearms where she'd tried to protect her face. Each injury told a story of violence, of cruelty, of a man who had no problem hurting someone who couldn't scream for help. The split lip needed butterfly bandages. Sal applied them with steady hands, though fury was building like a storm in his chest. He'd seen violence his entire life, had dealt it out himself when necessary. But there was something particularly heinous about what Tyler had done. The targeting of someone vulnerable, the mockery of her disability while he beat her, the psychological torture layered on top of physical pain. As he worked, he kept up a steady stream of signed communication, making sure Arya never felt trapped or helpless. Almost done. You're doing great. This might sting a little. Each word formed clearly so she could follow, so she maintained control even while injured and afraid. When he finished, he sat back and signed, all clean. Nothing needs stitches. The bruises will heal in a week or two. How's your pain level? Arya's hands moved slowly. Everything hurts, but I've had worse. That statement hit Sal like a physical blow. She'd had worse. This wasn't the first time Tyler had beaten her. Maybe not even the worst time. Just the time she'd finally found the courage to run. As he worked, he asked questions with his hands. Tell me about him. About what happened. Take your time. We have all night if you need it. Arya's hands moved slowly at first, hesitant, as if speaking the truth might somehow summon Tyler back. Then faster, the story pouring out in graceful arcs and sharp movements. She'd been with Tyler for a year. He'd seemed nice at first, had even learned basic sign language which had made her feel seen and cared for. Most hearing people didn't bother learning to communicate properly with her. They'd write notes or speak slowly and loudly as if she were deaf, not understanding that she could hear perfectly fine. She just couldn't respond vocally. But Tyler had learned. Not fluently, but enough. Enough to make her feel special. Enough to make her trust him. 6 months in, everything changed. He'd started getting jealous, accusing her of looking at other men, of flirting, of wanting to leave him. She'd tried to explain that she was just being polite, just living her life. But Tyler didn't listen. He'd started checking her phone, demanding to know where she was every moment, isolating her from friends who he said didn't really care about her. The first time he hit her was 9 months ago. A slap, hard enough to leave her ear ringing. He'd cried afterward, apologized profusely, sworn it would never happen again. Bought her flowers. Been sweet for 2 whole weeks. Arya had wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe it was a one-time mistake. But it happened again. And again. Each time with more violence, more cruelty. He'd learned that hitting her face left visible marks, so he'd start hitting her body instead. Ribs, stomach, thighs. Places she could hide with long sleeves and pants. Places that hurt just as much but didn't raise questions at work. Tonight had been different. Tonight she'd come home from her job at the Brooklyn Public Library, and Tyler had been drinking heavily. He'd been stewing all day about something he'd seen that morning. She'd smiled at a man who held the door for her at a coffee shop. And in Tyler's paranoid, possessive mind, that smile had meant she was cheating on him. Leaving him. Disrespecting him. When she got home, he'd started yelling immediately. She'd tried to sign that nothing happened, that she was just being polite, that she loved only him. But he'd grabbed her wrists, preventing her from signing, taking away her only voice. He'd shaken her hard enough to make her teeth rattle. Then he'd started hitting her. And while his fists connected with her face, breaking through her defenses, he'd screamed the words that had broken something fundamental inside her. Her hands trembled violently as she spelled it out word by word. He said, "What? Not gonna say anything? Come on, talk back. Oh wait, you can't. Say something. Say you're sorry. That's right, mute bitch. Can't even defend yourself. Tell me to stop. Oh right, you can't do that either because you're fucking broken. Defective. Who else would want someone who can't even talk? You're lucky I stay. Lucky I put up with you. Now shut up and take what you deserve." She'd managed to break free when he'd paused to take a drink. Had run barefoot out of their apartment and down the street, not knowing where she was going, just knowing she had to get away. She'd run 3 blocks, her feet bleeding on the concrete, her face streaming blood, until she'd seen lights. Sal's restaurant, the first safe place she'd found. She'd had no plan beyond escape, no idea if anyone would help her, no way to call for help since screaming was impossible. She couldn't yell for assistance, couldn't call 911 while running. Her phone was back at the apartment. All she'd had were her hands and her desperation, and the hope that someone, anyone, would see her terror and respond with kindness instead of cruelty. Sal finished cleaning her wounds, his movements deliberate and controlled even as rage built like a storm in his chest. The physical violence was bad enough, the bruises and blood and broken skin. But the psychological cruelty, the weaponization of her disability, the deliberate mockery of something she couldn't control, that was unforgivable. He signed with intensity, making sure she saw every gesture, every word. He was wrong. About everything. You're not weak because you can't speak. You're not broken or defective. Your hands are your voice, and they're beautiful. Strong. Eloquent in ways most voices never achieve. What he did to you, the violence, the cruelty, the mockery, none of that was your fault. None of it was deserved. He's the broken one, not you. He's the one who's defective. A real man doesn't need to hurt someone to feel powerful. A real man doesn't mock disabilities. He protects. He cherishes. He lifts up instead of tears down. Arya's eyes filled with tears that spilled over and tracked through the remaining blood on her cheeks. She signed back slowly, as if testing the words, seeing if they could be true. Nobody ever said that before. Everyone sees me as damaged. Less than. Incomplete because I can't speak. Tyler said no one else would want someone who can't talk. That I was lucky he stayed even though I'm such a burden. That my parents probably died early to escape having a mute daughter. That I should be grateful anyone puts up with me at all. Sal caught her hands gently, stopping the self-deprecating words, the poison Tyler had poured into her mind for a year. He signed with absolute certainty. He's wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. Any man would be lucky to have you. Your voice isn't less valid because it's silent. Communication isn't just sound. You speak with your hands, your eyes, your expressions, You're eloquent in ways that go beyond words. And the man who can't see that, who can't appreciate the beauty of how you communicate, doesn't deserve you. Your parents would be proud of you. Anyone who knows you is blessed by it. You're not a burden. You're a gift. She stared at him, and something shifted in her expression. Wonder. Hope. The beginning of belief that maybe, just maybe, Tyler had been lying. That maybe she wasn't fundamentally broken after all. Maybe her silence was just different, not less. Thank you, she signed, and the gratitude in her movements was profound. Thank you for seeing me, for helping me, for understanding in ways no one else ever has. Where will you go tonight? Sal asked, though he already knew the answer, already knew what he was going to offer. Do you have family? Friends who can take you in? Arya shook her head, the movement causing her to wince from her injuries. Parents died when I was 19. Car accident, no siblings. I was an only child. As for friends, Tyler isolated me from all of them over the past 6 months. Said they didn't understand us, didn't know how to communicate with me properly, didn't really care about me. Made me feel like spending time with them was a betrayal of our relationship. She laughed bitterly, the sound strange because she could make sounds, just not words. Now I know he just wanted me alone. Easier to control someone who has no support system. No one to tell her that what's happening isn't normal, isn't okay. I have coworkers at the library, but none I'm close enough with to show up at their door bleeding at midnight. Then you'll stay here, Sal signed with finality. I have an apartment above the restaurant. It's empty, secure, and yours for as long as you need it. You'll be safe there. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. Restraining order, police report, whatever you need legally. Tonight, you rest and heal. I can't ask you to do that. We're strangers. You don't owe me anything. You're not asking. I'm offering. And you're right. I don't owe you anything. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. Because I know what it's like to lose someone who communicated differently than the hearing world expected. My sister Lucia taught me that there are many ways to have a voice, and all of them are valid. She taught me to see beyond sound to the meaning underneath. And she'd want me to help you. So let me. Please. The apartment above the restaurant was spacious, well-furnished, and secure. Sal had bought the building 5 years ago and kept the top floor for nights when he worked too late to drive home to his house in Bay Ridge. He showed Arya the bedroom, the bathroom with fresh towels, the kitchen stocked with basics. Everything is yours. Lock the door if it makes you feel safer. I'll be downstairs in my office if you need anything. His hands formed the words with careful precision. You're safe here, Arya. I promise. Why are you helping me? We're strangers. Sal was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. Because I know what it's like to lose someone who couldn't hear the world the way others do. My sister Lucia was deaf and mute from birth. I spent 15 years learning to communicate with her, learning that words aren't the only language, that silence can be full of meaning. She died when she was 16, rare heart condition. And I haven't used sign language since because it hurt too much. His hands stilled. But you remind me that some pain is worth carrying. Some languages are worth speaking even when it hurts. Arya's tears fell freely now. She crossed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around him in a hug that was part gratitude, part shared grief, part desperate need for human kindness. Sal stood very still, then carefully returned the embrace, mindful of her injuries. Thank you, her hand said when she finally pulled back. For seeing me, for helping me, for understanding. Get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning. Sal left her there and returned to his office, where he made a phone call to Vincent, his most trusted man. I need information on someone. Tyler Costa. The drunk asshole you and Carlo threw out earlier. Everything about him. Where he lives, where he works, who his friends are, what he owes, where he drinks, all of it. "You planning something, boss?" He beat a woman who can't speak, hit her while mocking her for not being able to talk back, while telling her no one else would want her. Sal's voice was cold. "Yeah, Vincent, I'm planning something. Consider it done. I'll have the file by morning." "Good. And Vincent, increase security around the restaurant. If Costa comes back, I want to know immediately, but don't engage unless he tries to get in. I want him feeling safe, feeling like he got away with it. For now." Sal hung up and poured himself a whiskey, staring out at the Brooklyn streets below. He'd built his reputation on controlled violence, on strategic thinking, on never letting emotions cloud business decisions. But this wasn't business. This was personal, in a way he hadn't experienced since Lucia's death. Arya's face kept appearing in his mind. Not the battered, broken version, but glimpses he'd caught of what she might look like whole. The intelligence in her hazel eyes, the graceful way her hands moved when she signed, the resilience it took to run, to ask a stranger for help, to keep fighting when the person who should have protected her had tried to break her. He'd meant what he said. Her voice was beautiful, different, but beautiful. And he was going to make sure Tyler Costa never silenced anyone again. The file arrived at 6 a.m. Sal hadn't slept, had spent the night working and thinking and planning. Vincent's people were thorough. Tyler Costa, 30 years old, construction worker when he actually showed up for shifts, which wasn't often. History of bar fights, drunk and disorderlies, one assault charge that got dropped when the victim refused to testify. 2 ex-girlfriends, both of whom had restraining orders that mysteriously disappeared. Sal read between the lines easily. Tyler had connections, knew how to make problems go away, had done this before. The pattern was clear. He found vulnerable women, isolated them, controlled them, hurt them. Arya wasn't his first victim. She'd just been unfortunate enough to be unable to scream for help. That ended now. Sal was reviewing Tyler's known addresses when he heard footsteps on the stairs. Arya appeared in his office doorway, looking small in borrowed clothes, one of his old Columbia sweatshirts hanging off her frame, her blonde hair wet from a shower. The bruises on her face looked worse in the morning light, purple and yellow and angry. "Good morning," Sal signed. "How did you sleep?" "Badly. But safely. That's more than I've had in months." Her hands moved with more confidence this morning. "Thank you for the clothes, and the shower, and everything. Sit. Have you eaten?" "Not yet." Sal called down to the restaurant kitchen and ordered breakfast sent up. Then he turned back to Arya and signed, "We need to discuss what happens next. You have options. I can help with all of them." Over eggs and coffee, they talked. Sal explained that she could file a police report, get a restraining order, press charges. He had lawyers who could expedite everything, make sure it was taken seriously despite Tyler's apparent ability to make problems disappear. Or, if she wanted, Sal could handle things another way. Off the record. Permanently. Arya's hands stilled. "You mean kill him. I mean make sure he never hurts you or anyone else again. However that needs to happen." Sal met her eyes directly. "I won't lie to you about what I am, Arya. I run an organization that operates outside the law. Violence is part of my world. But I direct it carefully, at people who deserve it. Tyler deserves it." She was quiet for a long time, her coffee growing cold. Finally, she signed, "If I say yes, am I as bad as him? No. There's a difference between defense and aggression, between justice and cruelty. He hurt you because he enjoyed it, because it made him feel powerful. Removing him from the world protects others. That's not the same thing. What would you do? If you were me?" Sal considered. "If I were you? I'd want him gone, permanently, so he never got the chance to do this to someone else. But I'm not you. This has to be your choice." Arya stared down at her hands, the hands that were her only voice, the hands Tyler had mocked while he beat her. Then she looked up at Sal with something hard and certain in her hazel eyes. "Make him disappear. Please." Sal nodded once. "Consider it done." The next few days established a routine. Sal went to work handling his various business interests. Arya stayed in the apartment above the restaurant, recovering physically and emotionally. Sal's men kept watch, reporting Tyler's movements. The man had filed a missing persons report on Arya, playing the concerned boyfriend, but he hadn't tried to find her beyond that. Probably assumed she'd come crawling back eventually. In the evenings, Sal and Arya fell into easy companionship. She'd come down to the restaurant after closing and sit in the kitchen while he worked, or they'd go up to the apartment and cook together, their conversation flowing entirely in sign language. Sal found himself looking forward to those hours more than anything else in his day. Arya was smart, funny, observant in ways that came from a lifetime of watching people carefully. She told him about her work at the library, about the children's reading program she helped with, about the way books had been her refuge when the world felt too loud and overwhelming. She asked about his work, and he was more honest with her than he'd been with anyone in years. About inheriting the organization from his father at 33, about the pressure of maintaining power while trying to run things more strategically than violently, about the isolation that came with being a boss. They talked about Lucia, and Sal found that it didn't hurt as much as he'd expected. Arya had known what it was like to be different, to communicate differently, to be underestimated because of it. She understood Lucia in ways most people never could have. One night, Arya taught Sal new signs, laughing silently when he got them wrong. "You sign like an old man," she teased. "That sign is ancient. Nobody uses that anymore." "I am an old man," he signed back with exaggerated dignity. "You're 40. That's not old." Her eyes sparkled with humor. "Just outdated." Sal laughed, a real laugh, and realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd done that. Arya had brought something into his carefully controlled life that he hadn't known he was missing. Lightness, joy. Connection that wasn't transactional or strategic. It was dangerous. Getting attached was dangerous. But Sal found he didn't care. The attack came a week later. Tyler had been drinking at his usual bar when he started bragging to anyone who would listen about his mute bitch girlfriend and how she'd better come back before he came looking. One of Sal's men, planted at the bar, heard everything. Heard Tyler describe in graphic detail what he'd do when he found Arya, how he'd make sure she understood who she belonged to. That night, Tyler stumbled out of the bar at 2 a.m. and headed toward his apartment. He never made it. Sal's men grabbed him 3 blocks away, quick and professional, throwing him into a van before he could even understand what was happening. They took him to a warehouse Sal owned near the docks, the kind of place that saw regular shipments in and out, where screams wouldn't be heard, and blood could be washed away. When Tyler woke up tied to a chair, Sal was waiting. "Remember me?" Sal asked from the shadows. Tyler's eyes, bloodshot and confused, struggled to focus. Where am I? What the fuck is this?" "The consequences of your actions." Sal stepped into the light, and Tyler paled. "You hurt someone under my protection. Mocked her for being mute while you beat her. Told her no one else would want her. Made her believe she was worthless. She's my girlfriend. What happens between us is my business now." Sal's voice was cold. "She told me everything, Tyler. Every hit, every cruel word. The way you weaponized her disability to torture her psychologically while you hurt her physically. The way you isolated her from everyone who might help her." Tyler started to struggle against his restraints. "You can't do this. I'll call the police. You'll do nothing. Because in approximately 3 hours, Tyler Costa will cease to exist. Your body will never be found. Your death will remain a mystery. And Arya will be free of you forever." Sal gestured to Vincent, who stepped forward with tools that made Tyler's eyes go wide with terror. Wait, please, I can pay you. I can disappear. I'll never go near her again, please. You're right. You'll never go near her again. Sal turned away. Make it hurt, Vincent, but don't let him make too much noise. We have neighbors. Sal left the warehouse and drove back to the restaurant. He didn't need to supervise. Vincent knew what to do. By morning, Tyler Costa would be gone as thoroughly as if he'd never existed. When Sal arrived back at the restaurant, he found Arya awake, sitting by the window overlooking the street. She turned when he entered, and her hands formed a question. It's done? It's done. He'll never hurt you again. She should have looked relieved, happy. Instead, her expression was complicated. I should feel guilty. I told you to kill him. That makes me responsible. Sal sat beside her and signed carefully. You're not responsible for his death. He was responsible. Every choice he made led him to this. Every time he raised his fist. Every time he used your voice against you. Every time he chose cruelty over kindness. He sealed his own fate. You just refused to be his next casualty. But I could have gone to the police. Could have... Arya. Sal turned her face gently toward him. You did nothing wrong. Survival isn't murder. Protection isn't cruelty. You made a choice to be safe, to make sure he never did this to anyone else. That's not something to feel guilty about. She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. I believe you. They sat together as the sun came up over Brooklyn, and Sal realized that somewhere in the past week, his feelings had shifted from protective to something more. He cared about Arya, genuinely cared, wanted her happy and safe and thriving, wanted to see her smile, hear her silent laughter, watch her hands dance through conversations that meant something. It was too soon. She was healing. She'd just escaped an abusive relationship. Getting involved now would be taking advantage of her vulnerability, her dependence on him for safety. So Sal kept his feelings carefully contained and focused on being what she needed. A friend, a protector, a safe harbor while she rebuilt herself. The weeks passed. Tyler's disappearance made the news briefly. Police investigated, found nothing, eventually filed it as a probable suicide or voluntary disappearance. His apartment was cleaned out, his belongings disposed of. Arya was officially free. She started going back to work at the library, with 2 of Sal's men following at a discreet distance. She started seeing a therapist who specialized in domestic violence recovery. She started rebuilding her life piece by piece. And through it all, Sal was there. Not hovering, not controlling, just present, available, consistent. Showing her through his actions that men could be trusted, that protection didn't require possession, that care didn't demand anything in return. They still had dinner together most nights, still communicated in the flowing poetry of sign language. But now those dinners often stretched into late-night conversations, into watching movies together on Sal's couch, into comfortable silences that didn't need filling. Sal taught Arya about his world, about the business he ran, about the fine line between criminal and just. She taught him about her world, about the beauty in silence, about how disability could be a different ability rather than a limitation. 3 months after Tyler's death, Arya came down to Sal's office during the day, which was unusual. He looked up from his desk to find her standing in the doorway, beautiful in the afternoon light, her blonde hair catching the sun. Her expression was determined. I want to talk, she signed. Of course. Sit. She sat across from him, and her hands moved with careful precision. I need to know if this is real. If what is real? This. Us. The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. The way I catch myself looking for you when you're not here. The way my heart beats faster when I see you. She paused. I need to know if I'm imagining it or if you feel it too. Sal's breath caught. Arya, please, just tell me the truth. If it's only gratitude, if I'm confused because you saved me, I need to know. But if it's more, if there's something real here, I need to know that too. Sal came around the desk and knelt in front of her chair so they were at eye level. His hands moved slowly, making sure she caught every word. It's real. I've been falling for you since the night you ran into my restaurant with blood on your face and terror in your eyes. Every day since then, I've fallen further. The way you laugh silently. The way your hands paint pictures in the air. The way you see through my walls to who I am underneath. I'm in love with you, Arya. Have been for weeks. I just didn't want to say it. Because I was afraid of pushing you. Of taking advantage of your vulnerability. Arya's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. I'm not vulnerable anymore. Or maybe I am, but in a different way. I'm vulnerable to you. To the way you make me feel seen and valued and beautiful. To the way you learned my language because it mattered to you. To the way you've been patient and kind and exactly what I needed. She reached out and cupped his face. I love you too, Sal. And I want to see where this goes. If you want that too. I want that. More than I've wanted anything in a long time. But we take it slow. We do this right. I'm going to court you properly, Arya Bennett. Dates, romance, all of it. She laughed, the breathy sound he'd come to adore. I'd like that. Sal stood and pulled her up with him, then signed something he'd been practicing. May I kiss you? Arya nodded, her eyes sparkling. Yes, please. He kissed her softly, carefully, mindful that this was precious and new and deserved to be treated with reverence. Arya kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sal signed, I've wanted to do that for months. Me too, she signed back. Let's not wait that long for the next one. They didn't. They kissed again, deeper this time. Weeks of tension and want, and careful distance finally breaking. Sal lifted her, and her legs wrapped around his waist as he carried her toward the apartment upstairs. They made it as far as the couch before stopping to kiss again, then stumbled toward the bedroom, leaving a trail of shoes and clothes. In his bed, with afternoon light streaming through the windows and Brooklyn spread out below them, Sal made love to Arya with all the patience and care he possessed. He signed to her throughout, telling her she was beautiful, perfect, his. She responded with her hands and her body, showing him without words how much she wanted this, wanted him. When they came together, moving in perfect rhythm, it felt like more than physical pleasure. It felt like communication in its purest form, like two people speaking the same language finally, completely. Afterward, tangled in his sheets with her head on his chest, Arya's hands moved against his skin. That was amazing. You're amazing, he signed back. I love you. I love you too. She traced patterns on his ribs. Thank you for being patient, for letting me heal before pushing for this. Thank you for trusting me, for giving me a chance. They stayed in bed for hours, talking and touching and learning each other in new ways. Sal discovered that Arya could make sounds, small gasps and moans that drove him crazy precisely because she chose to share them with him. Arya discovered that Sal was tender in private in ways his public persona never showed, that his hands could be as gentle as they were deadly. As the sun set and bathed the room in golden light, Arya signed, I never thought I'd have this. Love without fear, desire without pressure. A man who sees my silence as part of me, not a flaw to overcome. Your silence is beautiful. You are beautiful. Every part of you. Sal kissed her forehead. And I plan to spend a very long time showing you exactly how beautiful. The months that followed were the happiest of Sal's life. He'd never expected to fall in love again, had resigned himself to a life of power and loneliness and controlled violence. But Arya had changed everything. She moved into his house in Bay Ridge officially, turning his sterile bachelor space into an actual home. They communicated constantly in sign language, which meant every conversation was visual, intentional, full of eye contact and presence. Sal found he preferred it to spoken words. There was an intimacy in sign language that voice couldn't match. They went on proper dates. Sal took her to quiet restaurants where they could sign without being interrupted, to art galleries where she could appreciate visual beauty, to beaches where they walked hand in hand. He learned her favorite flowers, her preferred coffee order, the way she liked to be touched. She learned his schedule, his moods, the difference between when he needed space and when he needed closeness. Sal's organization accepted Arya without question. They'd all seen their boss transform from cold and distant to almost human, and they credited her for it. She was kind to his men, learned their names and faces, treated them with respect, even as she made it clear she knew exactly what they did. Arya's life blossomed too. Without Tyler's shadow hanging over her, she thrived. She got a promotion at the library, started teaching sign language classes on weekends, reconnected with old friends who Tyler had isolated her from. She was vibrant and confident, and exactly who she was always meant to be. 8 months after Tyler's death, on a cool spring evening, Sal took Arya to dinner at the restaurant where they'd met. He'd had the whole place cleared, just the two of them and candles, and the best food Brooklyn had to offer. Over wine and dessert, Sal reached across the table and took Arya's hands. His movements were deliberate, important. "There's something I need to ask you." Arya's eyes went wide. "Sal, let me finish." His hands continued. 8 months ago, you ran into my restaurant covered in blood, terrified and alone. You asked for help and I gave it. But what I got in return was so much more than I expected. You gave me purpose, joy, a reason to be more than just a man who operates in shadows. You taught me that communication goes beyond words, that love can grow in silence, that some of the most beautiful conversations happen without sound. He pulled out a small box and opened it, revealing a platinum ring with a sapphire center stone. "Marry me, Arya. Be my wife, my partner. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of your trust, your love, your beautiful silence. Let me sign good morning to you every day for the next 50 years. Say yes." Arya was crying, her hands shaking as she signed back. "Yes, yes, of course yes. I love you so much." Sal slipped the ring on her finger, then came around the table to kiss her. The restaurant staff, waiting discreetly in the kitchen, erupted in applause they couldn't hear, but could feel through the floorboards. They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony at a botanical garden in Brooklyn. The ceremony was conducted in both spoken English and sign language, with an interpreter for guests who didn't sign. Arya wore a simple white dress and carried white roses. Sal wore a black suit and couldn't stop smiling. Their vows were entirely in sign language, their hands forming promises visible to everyone. Sal vowed to protect, cherish, and communicate with her always, to never take her voice for granted, to love her exactly as she was. Arya vowed to trust him, stand beside him, and show him daily that love transcends sound, to be his partner in everything, to love him fearlessly. When the officiant pronounced them married, Sal kissed his wife and signed against her lips, "I love you, Mrs. Romano." She signed back, "I love you too." The reception was a blend of cultures and languages. Some guests spoke, some signed, some did both. Sal's men mingled with Arya's library friends. Italian music played while conversations happened in silence and sound simultaneously. It was chaotic and beautiful and perfectly them. Late in the evening, Sal found Arya standing alone on the garden terrace, looking out at the city lights. He came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. She leaned back against him, content. Happy? He signed where she could see his hands. So happy. Beyond happy. She turned in his arms. Thank you for asking who hurt me that night. Thank you for answering for me. Always. Anyone hurts you? I answer. That's what marriage means. We answer for each other. They stood there under the stars, two people who had found each other in violence and built something beautiful from it. Arya had learned that her voice was powerful, even in silence. Sal had learned that love could grow in the spaces between words. And together, they'd proven that some of the most important conversations happen without sound. A year later, they sat together in Sal's study, working on their respective projects. Arya was preparing for a sign language class, reviewing her lesson plans. Sal was reviewing shipping manifests, legitimate business that no longer required his constant attention, because he'd learned to delegate, to trust, to have a life beyond work. Arya's hand touched his arm, pulling his attention. She signed something that made his heart stop. I'm pregnant. Sal stared at her, then at her hands, then back at her face. You're sure? I'm sure. 3 tests, all positive. We're having a baby. Sal pulled her into his lap and kissed her deeply, his hands shaking as he signed. I love you. I love you so much. We're going to be parents. Yes. She was crying happy tears. Our baby will grow up knowing sign language from birth. We'll understand that there are many ways to communicate, many ways to be heard. Our baby will be so loved. By both of us. They sat there planning the future, their hands moving in the silent language that had brought them together. And Sal thought about the night Arya had burst into his restaurant covered in blood and terror. About the choice he'd made to protect her, to learn her language, to let himself love again. Best decision he'd ever made. 7 months later, they welcomed a daughter with Arya's blonde hair and Sal's dark eyes. They named her Lucia, after Sal's sister, and from her first days, they spoke to her in both English and sign language. She would grow up bilingual in ways most children never were, fluent in sound and silence both. On a quiet evening when Lucia was 6 months old, Sal found Arya in the nursery, signing a bedtime story to their daughter. The baby watched her mother's hands with fascination, already starting to recognize patterns and meanings. Sal leaned against the doorframe, watching his family, and felt contentment so deep it was almost overwhelming. Arya looked up and signed, What? Just thinking about how lucky I am. How you changed everything. We changed everything. Together. She stood and came to him, and they stood in the doorway watching their daughter sleep. This is what we built from that terrible night. This love. This family. This life. Sal signed against her neck where Lucia couldn't see. I'd do it all again. Every moment. Just to end up here with you. Me too. Even the pain. Because it led me to you. They turned off the nursery light and walked hand in hand to their own room, their conversation continuing in the comfortable silence that was their language, their love, their life together. And in the morning, Sal would wake up and sign good morning to his wife, and she would sign it back, and their daughter would babble in her crib, learning that communication came in many forms, and love sounded like silence and signing, and the perfect understanding of people who chose to hear each other in whatever language they spoke. Who hurt you? Sal had asked that terrible night 8 years ago. Arya couldn't speak then, couldn't answer, but Sal had answered for her, with protection, with love, with the promise that her silence would never be a weakness again, but rather the foundation of the most beautiful language he'd ever learned. And every day since, he'd kept that promise. Have you ever loved someone who communicates differently? Have you witnessed love that transcends words? Where are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to our channel for more tales of protection, healing, and unexpected love. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. And if you want exclusive bonus content, extended scenes, and early access to our stories, consider joining our membership program. Your support helps us create more content like this. Thank you for being part of our community.